Imagine growing up hearing only one side of the story, being fed a version of your dad that made you question if he ever truly cared.
Welcome back, Camryn.
Now imagine finding out later in life that the truth was far more complicated, and maybe you were never supposed to know it. This isn't a story about me, this is about Camryn Turner, better known as Cam from Camryn, a popular YouTube vlogger who built an empire sharing their life as a teen mom. But lately, the content has taken a darker turn. Instead of healing from the loss of their late husband, Landon, they've been painting him as a villain to millions of viewers, and more tragically, to their 2 young daughters. From celebrating themselves on Father's Day to having their kids call them dad.
Wait, you sound like dads!
It's not just about moving on, it's about rewriting the narrative. And when that narrative buries the memory of a parent, it's not just content, it's erasure. Today we're going to talk about a situation that's been on my mind. Camryn Turner from the family vlogging channel on YouTube called Camryn, and how she's been bad-mouthing and denigrating her deceased spouse online. In this video I'm going to investigate what effect might this have on her 2 small children. First, I want to add a big disclaimer. Cam has recently been transitioning from female to male, and this has absolutely nothing to do with her recent coming out as transgender. This video also has nothing to do with the fact that she has entered into a polyamorous relationship. This video will focus directly on the effect that Cam's actions might have on the children. Now, for those who might not be familiar with Camryn Turner, Cam from Camryn is a well-known YouTuber who, along with their late spouse Landon, shared their family life online with millions of viewers. They amassed a lot of money during that time, and some people might call this child exploitation, but for the sake of this video, I'm focusing solely on parental alienation that might be going on. What is parental alienation, you might wonder? Well, I went through this for 20 years, starting at the age of 9, and parental alienation is a form of psychological child abuse, where one parent manipulates their child to reject their other parent. It has very damaging effects on children, and I went through this for 20 years. Before I get into the video, I also want to say that I have so much empathy and compassion for Camryn. I know that she's been through so much trauma. If you're not familiar with the case, her husband unalived himself a couple months after they got married at age, I believe, 19 or 20. They had 2 small children together, and I feel so bad for the trauma that Camryn has endured. I also want to make a note to regular viewers on my channel who might be parents going through parental alienation. You might be wondering why I'm making this video in the first place. Well, a while back I made another video about another family vlogger, alleged child exploiter, called Kira Sievertson, and that video has a lot of views. As a matter of fact, that video reached a really young audience, and the comments were just what I was hoping for. A lot of people were realizing that they were alienated from a parent themselves. So I believe that doing these videos on family vloggers who might be engaging in parental alienation allows me to reach a younger audience, and that's been my goal all along, to wake up other alienated kids to the reality of what they've been experiencing. Let's start with the facts. Camryn's spouse, Landon Clifford, who passed away from in 2020, was for years a main subject of Camryn's online content. While Landon was alive, the pair appeared to have a very safe and loving relationship. In fact, fans really loved this family channel because of Landon. He seemed like such an involved and caring, loving dad, and in fact, Camryn endorsed this many times in her videos. It wasn't until years after Landon's death that Camryn began making videos claiming that she was a DV survivor, that Landon had allegedly abused her and the children. Now, some fans argue that she has every right to speak out about her own experiences, and I might agree with that, especially if he wasn't a good partner or father, and I get that. I also understand that none of us will really truly know the truth of what happened behind closed doors. What is the problem? Well, in my opinion, the problem is when these allegations spill over into the public domain. It doesn't just affect the adults involved anymore. When you make these allegations online, The internet is forever. Your children will see that one day, and it will impact the kids in many ways that most people don't fully understand. Please understand one thing, especially Camryn, if you happen to come across this video. My argument is not that Landon didn't possibly mistreat Camryn. I have my personal beliefs about that, but that's not my argument. My claim is that regardless of whether or not Landon mistreated Camryn and or the kids, it's wrong of Cam to air out the children's trauma online, period. And you might disagree with me, and that's okay. We're allowed to have differing opinions. That's actually what makes life interesting. Most recently, Cam posted an alarming video claiming for the first time that Landon had not only mistreated her, but also the children. This is coming about 5 years after he unalived himself.
I am the parent who stuck around. I am the parent who is consistently in their lives still. I am doing the hard thing and being alive and confronting my own trauma for the sake of my kids still having another parent around. Like, it is not easy. It is not easy, but I'm here and I'm doing it every single day for the sake of my kid. After all that their dad put them through, to say that I'm gonna be the root of all their trauma. I'm not the reason that my daughter has a scar on her forehead. I'm not the parent who left in the middle of the night without saying goodbye and completely abandoned them. I'm the one who protected them. I'm the one who tried to remove us from that situation and find safety. And again, I'm the one who's still here every single day. That is way more than I could say about their father. Yes, my kids are extremely traumatized, and it is not because of me. That's what he left me with, without any say in the matter. In the blink of an eye, I was left to raise traumatized kids who lost their father in such a horrific way. A father who in their last few years of life was extremely abusive. That's just the truth of it. That's what I'm facing.
Fans have expressed their confusion, and some are frankly outraged by Camryn's lack of regard for her children's safety and privacy. But I also want to talk about the emotional and psychological effects that airing the girls' trauma online and thus painting their father as bad, unloving, and abusive, what effect this will have on the children now and down the line. Why does this matter? As someone who was manipulated to reject one of my parents for years, believing lies, believing false allegations, I know firsthand how damaging it is when one parent talks bad about the other parent, when one parent vilifies or denigrates the other parent. In my situation, my mom badmouthed and vilified my dad, portraying him as a villain in a story that I didn't even understand. And let me tell you, children are perceptive. Children are smart. This is not something that your children will just shrug off. And that's why what Camryn has been doing is so dangerous. Children have very black or white mentalities until about the age 10 or 11, when they're told and made to believe that one of their parents was bad, abusive, unloving, or dangerous. Well, what happens is that the child knows they're half of each parent. So they reject half of themselves, coming to believe that half of them is bad, unloving. And this will cause a wide array of self-destructive effects that play out over time in that child or teenager, young adult's life. It can pressure the children to take sides. When children are made to believe negative things about one of their parents, what happens is that they will internalize that and commonly come to believe that they themselves are bad too.
What I did was not me talking bad about him as a person. I shared my experience as a victim of domestic violence. I chose to speak out about what I went through because there's a lot of victims who suffer from domestic violence, and even after they leave that situation, they're never truly safe. So being that I am in a situation where I'm safe now, and I have a platform to do so, I share my story.
Parental alienation is something that often happens really slowly and subtly. It can start with seemingly innocent comments like, oh, your dad was a jerk sometimes, or he never really cared about us. I'm sorry he didn't stick around. I'm the only parent who stuck around and cares about you. And these are some of the things that Camryn has been saying online, that she's the only parent that stuck around. And she even mentioned a scar on one of her children's forehead that was allegedly caused by her late husband. These words, these stories, repeated over time, plant seeds in the child's mind. They began questioning their other parent. And perhaps the worst part, to love the parent that's being bad-mouthed, that's being portrayed as the bad guy. To love that parent feels like you're betraying the parent who's speaking ill of the other. I want to take a moment to remind everybody listening that children naturally love both of their parents. This is a survival mechanism. Even when a parent is flawed or makes mistakes, even when a parent is actually hurtful and mistreats a child, kids will usually remain loyal to their parents out of pure survival, if nothing else. Kids especially do not have the emotional capacity to separate the actions of a parent from their innate need to be loved and cared for by that parent. When the child's love is weaponized for the sake of making one parent look bad, who suffers? It's obviously the child. And this is precisely what makes the situation with Camryn Turner so upsetting, so alarming. Their kids will one day have access to these videos, to these comments, to what she's saying about their dad. And if she's saying such things online in the public domain, I have to wonder, what is she saying behind closed doors? They will see and hear their mom bad-mouthing their dad. I promise you that will affect them emotionally, psychologically, socially, and many other ways. And if the parent doing the bad-mouthing is also the primary caregiver, this creates an even more intense power dynamic. The child often will feel like they can't go against or question the parent who is doing the bad-mouthing because this will be seen as betrayal. I spent 20 years thinking that I knew the truth about my parent, only to realize later that I'd been manipulated, lied to, and abused all along. I was put into a false reality where my dad was bad, selfish, and didn't love me, only to realize that my mom had ruined 20 years of my life, taking away what could have been a beautiful relationship with him the whole time. And now I get that in this situation, Camryn's late husband is deceased. I understand. And you might say, what does it matter if she's talking bad about him because he's not even here in the first place? It matters. These kids know innately and maybe even consciously, they know they're half of each of their parents. And if you speak ill about their dad, if you color him as a bad guy, an abusive guy, etc., it will affect the girl's perceptions of themselves. To conclude, I'm not saying that Camryn's own feelings and experiences. To conclude, I am not saying that Camryn's feelings and experiences are not valid. They are. But it's important to recognize that she has 2 small children. This isn't just her story. It's about the impact on the children who didn't ask to be involved in this drama in the first place. If you're a parent watching this, please take one thing from this video. Understand that what you say about your partner or your ex-partner, whether directly to your kids or publicly online, matters. Children notice, and they don't just lose trust in the parent who's doing the bad-mouthing, they lose trust in the whole concept of love, relationships, and loyalty. They lose trust in themselves. If we truly care about the well-being of our children, we must stop the cycle of alienation and allow our children to love both of their parents.